he turned on the classic rock station, he looks over at me one time and he's like, "Do you get mad when you hear Bon Jovi on a classic rock station?" I was like, "Yes, yes, I do."
Welcome to the Greatest Lists podcast, a show about music and lists. This season, your hosts Jason and Eric are counting down the top 25 guitar solos of the 80s and the top 25 guitar solos of the 90s. Think your favorite made the list? Tune in and find out. Take it away, boys.
Welcome back to Season 2 of Greatest Lists, a music and talk podcast featuring lists of the greatest songs of all time. I am Jason, your host for this episode. Joining me, as always, my co-host Eric. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing well. I'm very glad to get up to this song today. One of my personal favorites that I can put on repeat in the truck and just wail to. And, 90s, like we said at the top of the season, not a lot of guitar solos and alternative stuff. So I'm excited to get to this one. But
yeah.
Just a quick reminder, check us out on Spotify Premium, because this is where we play the featured song here just in a second, and all the bonus songs at the end of the show you can hear while you listen to us jabber about them. Our song, number 13 in our top 25 guitar solos of the 90s, comes from 1993, an album called Siamese Dream, and we are talking about Cherub from Smashing Pumpkins.
Behind the music.
So our spotlight today is on Mr. Smashing Pumpkins, you might say, guitarist, singer, songwriter, Billy Corgan. He's really the only continuous member of Smashing Pumpkins, at least what I read throughout the years. But just a little fun fact, he owns the NWA Pro Wrestling organization. Did you know that? He bought them.
Does he really?
Yeah, he bought them a while back. He's been
That's amazing.
Linked, I think it was with TNA Wrestling or something. So I had no idea he had like a wrestling connection.
I
just
didn't
thought
either.
That
That's
was
weird.
interesting. He's like the CEO of a wrestling organization. Anyway,
He's the new Vince McMahon.
yeah. So he is from Chicago, and in high school he decided to play guitar. Started to play guitar, and after seeing a flying V at a friend's house, I guess on TV or something, Corgan gave his savings to his father, who bought him a used Les Paul knockoff. His father encouraged him to listen to Jeff Beck and Jimi Hendrix, but offered little support past that. So Corgan taught himself to play the instrument. And he performed in a string of bands in high school, but not finding the Chicago music scene to his liking, Corgan moved to St. Petersburg, Florida in '85 with his first major band called The Marked. Not finding success there, the band dissolved and Corgan moved back to Chicago. And from 1987 to '88, he played guitar in a Chicago band called Deep Blue Dream. He left that band to focus on Smashing Pumpkins, which he eventually formed with guitarist James Iha.
Yeah.
Followed by bassist Darcy Rinsky and drummer Jimmy Chamberlain. The band's debut album, Gish, in 1991, fared better than expected, but the follow-up, Siamese Dream, in 1993 became a multi-platinum hit. The album, Siamese Dream, contains 13 tracks and runs just over an hour. Their previous album, Gish, was 10 songs with a running time of 45 minutes. So since CDs were now the format of choice and could hold more music, the band was pushed by Virgin Records to fill more of it, which put pressure on the band and affected their workflow. This is according to Wikipedia here. But according to Billy Corgan, this pressure to produce kept him from refining Cherub Rock. He was speaking to Cream magazine. He said, "I wrote Cherub Rock in a half an hour. I heard it one day while I was driving up the road, and it was one of the last songs I wrote before we did the album. The thing is, there's parts of me that wonder what would have happened if I had spent 4 hours writing it and not done something else. How much better a song would it have been?" That unquote. So that gets my wheels turning, because I love the song as it is. And, what more could you have done with it? I don't know. Corgan insisted that the song be released as the first single from the album. The song did pretty well in the charts, reaching number 7 on the alternative chart and number 23 on the mainstream rock chart. And then on October 30th, 1993, Smashing Pumpkins performed it on Saturday Night Live. So during the Gish and the Siamese Dream era, these first 2 albums, Corgan played a customized 57 reissue Fender Stratocaster equipped with 3 Fender Lace sensor pickups. And of course, you can tell me all about that. But no, I know what pickups are. But that was his setup for these first couple of albums. Cherub Rock was performed in standard tuning with an E octave played at the 7th fret. Of course, I'm getting too technical here, but a technique which the band uses on its other songs, this is why I'm bringing it up, like Drown, Trintessa, and Starla. Corgan describes this as the pumpkin chord. So saying we basically stole that from Jimi Hendrix, but Hendrix probably stole it from Wes Montgomery, unquote. The predominant effect on the solo was achieved by recording the guitar solo to 2 different tapes, which were then run simultaneously with the speed of one tape slightly altered. So that's how you got that kind of weird vibe, that weird effect.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so good. And then Cherub Rock contains various overdubs influenced by the genres of shoegazing, as well as the 1970s classic arena rock. I'm again reading this from Wiki. According to Corgan, the song's introductory drum riff is a direct lift from Rush's 1975 song "By Tor and the Snow Dog," and I neglected to go out and compare the two, but I'm sure that's probably correct.
Yeah, it is.
Let's get personal.
All right, so I wasn't a huge Pumpkins fan at first. I had a friend in college that was a fan, so I think it eventually just kind of rubbed off on me. And Cherub Rock was the song that really hooked me and is my favorite of theirs by far. Well, maybe a close second to Bullet with Butterfly Wings. Everybody loves that, Anyway, I really got back into Smashing Pumpkins thanks to, I'm not ashamed to admit it, Guitar Hero.
Oh, amazing. Yes.
The third Guitar Hero had this song on it. I was obsessed, playing it to the point where I was first exposed to it, I think by my brother-in-law. And then I went out and I bought a PS2. And I remember dragging it to work on occasion and playing it in the break room during lunch. Yeah, I was really hooked on Guitar Hero.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, I remember burning a Pumpkin CD for my truck, and it would take, 4 or 5 listens of Cherub Rock before I'd go on to another song. I just love it so much.
Wow.
So I made my own kind of greatest hits of the Pumpkins to put in the truck and listen to it. So
Nice.
I've kind of grown over the years on their music, and I do enjoy going back, especially this album, going back and listen to the whole thing. But
Wow.
what's your personal history with the Smashing Pumpkins?
I got to tell you, I don't like them. I cannot stand the Pumpkins. And the only
did you hear that knife go right into my side?
The only thing that I hate more than the Pumpkins is Billy Corgan himself. I would probably start listening to the Pumpkins if he wasn't in the band. I can't stand that guy. He's so annoying. That's my history with the guy. But so he's just like even what you just said just a minute ago when he called it the pumpkin chord because it was that octave. Dude, every alternative band in the 90s played that same chord. You didn't freaking invent it. God, he is so full of himself. He is so. Oh my God, I don't want to get started. I can't. Anyway,
he is his own person.
He is his own person.
That. Yeah,
I mean, and he's no different than any other temperamental, self-involved rock star. But I saw an interview with him one time, and it just rubbed me the wrong way, and I just decided that day that I was never going to like Billy Corgan. I don't know why. But I just have never got into the music. I have a friend that is just a huge Pumpkin fan. And I just for his sake, one time I just gave it a try. I tried to like him because my buddy was a big fan of there. I just couldn't get into it. The only song that I even like is Bullet with Butterfly Wings.
Yeah.
The rest of them, I just have never, been in the mood to listen to the Pumpkins. It just hasn't appealed to me. Much like, I'm sure I picked out several songs that you have been like, I'm not listening to that.
I said, it took a while for me to warm up on them. I'm not the hugest fan.
Yeah.
And I loved 1999 when that came out. I bought this Grammy compilation, and that was one of the songs on there. And I couldn't get enough of that one too. That was college years. And then, that kind of led back to, exploring more of their music, and from my friend in college that had all their albums. So,
well, and I will say that when they first came out and they were popular, like the early '90s, I wasn't listening to a lot of alternative music. That's when I kind of had fallen into Christian music, like Christian alternative, that kind of stuff. So I was listening to more of that. And then when I just came back, I was late to the party for the Pumpkins, and I just never could jump on the bandwagon.
Went back to the devil music.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
The breakdown.
All right, so again, I'm gonna go head over heels on this song. I'm gonna be like, yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, it was okay.
But I love the build up to the solo. Just speaking about the solo specifically.
Yeah.
It's basically the same build up from the intro, but more intense. And then first, the effects on the guitar are just so amazing. There's so much feedback, and I don't know. I want to hear it soloed. Like, I hope Rick Beato at some point breaks it down so I can hear every little bit of that solo and how they did it. I mean, we read that he was using 2 tracks to get that effect, but it's just so that sound just draws me in. And I just think the notes and the tones he hits during the solo matches the song perfectly. I love all the slides, and maybe you can enlighten the technical terminology, but when he slides his hand several times to the low end and then back real quick, I just love that. And it adds a little, emotion, or what, I don't know what I want to call that.
Depth. It adds a lot of depth to it.
Depth. Yeah. To just playing and, keeping your hand up there, and then, you go down the frets and to the bottom and back. I love that.
Yeah.
But it's not long. It's only about 22 seconds of a nearly 5-minute song.
Which for a song from the 90s is a lifetime.
But for alternative.
Yeah.
And alternative
a lifetime.
Too. It is. But anyway, back to the intro. I've always loved how they build it. They add like an instrument. So it's just the drums first, and then you kind of hear the rhythm guitar, and then the bass, and then the lead guitar, and then it's just boom, and then you get that great riff throughout the song. Just hooks your ear in. I like the feedback too at the end of the song. Like, they're going through those last few lines, and that is just one long ass note and whammy. When you're playing Guitar Hero, it's just, it stays up for like
that's
almost
amazing.
the end of that song. That's what I always remember about it. But
that's great.
I like how you get that same build too. So you get it at the intro, you get it right before the solo, and then it comes back to it kind of at the end of the song. And you get those 3 notes to end, and it just makes me want to hit repeat. Like I said, I could listen to this thing 24/7. I just love this song. So there you go. There's my take. And let's hear somebody that's not a Pumpkins fan. I want to hear what you think of the song.
What it impresses me about anybody, it doesn't matter who it is what is the steps they take to make something sound a certain way. Like you said, they use 2 tracks and slowed one of them down to get that sound. I mean, those are just some of the weirdest things that musicians do to make things sound the way they sound. And you never would, just listening to it, you never would have thought that was 2 tracks doing that. You would have thought it was
right.
In this day and age, you think it's just digital. They put some kind of an effect on there, and it did.
Yeah.
This is back when they were using tape still.
Man.
And they had to figure out how to make these things happen.
Right.
And so that it doesn't matter who it is. I'm always impressed with pre-digital artists that do weird things like that to achieve, what they're trying to, some sound they're trying to achieve. But you're right; it's not a long solo, and it's. I'm trying not to be mean because I know you love it, dude.
Hey, don't hold back for my.
But
my
it's
sake.
also, it's also.
I'll get you back on another episode.
Yes. I'll be honest with you. When you pick this song and put it on the list, I don't think I'd ever listened to this song all the way through to know that there was a solo in it.
Yeah.
Listening to it for the first 2-3 times, it's just your typical solo that has some cool parts to it. It's not anything mind blowing, but again, to achieve some of the sounds that he wanted, he did some really cool stuff that I guarantee you there are artists today that don't have to do that.
Right.
They just drop a digital effect on their track in Pro Tools, and all of a sudden it makes this cool sound. And Billy Corgan had to figure out, and I guarantee he didn't figure that out. They did it by accident. He was like, "Oh, that sounds cool. Let's do that." That's how half of those really cool sounds took place back in the 80s and 90s. They just happened to do something, and they were like, "Oh, wow, that's freaking cool. Let's do that some more."
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, you were laughing about him saying that's the pumpkin chord and stuff.
Yeah.
I think they have a particular sound, and
they do,
and to have that that effect on there or whatever, it makes them unique enough that people are now like, okay, now I've got to try to drop something in to sound like the Pumpkins because that's the sound I want.
Well, and that unique sound part of that comes from what you mentioned earlier. He had that Fender with the lace pickups. Fenders typically aren't built to oversaturate and overdrive like that for that kind of music. Mm-hmm. I mean, you hear Stevie Ray Vaughan play them, and they're blues type music, but they aren't really used a lot for alternative or hard rock. Mm-hmm. But his sound comes out of those lace pickups that were on his guitar. That's what makes their sound so, at least on that album, so unique. But you're right, they do. They have you can hear without hearing his voice, you can hear a Pumpkin song and know, oh, that's the Pumpkins. Just because they have a unique sound. And I mean, God bless them for that, because they're, late 80s in the metal scene and then mid 90s with the alternative scene, all those bands try to sound the same and you can't figure out who's who. But you know when you hear a Pumpkin song, because they have a unique sound, and that comes from him. Because like you said, it's a revolving door of musicians. It's just him. That's the constant. And so, to be able to achieve that, that's pretty amazing by itself.
I agree. All right. Well, that wasn't so bad. All right. So the number 13 solo on our top 25 guitar solos in the 90s is from Cherub Rock. Some bonus songs for this episode, which you may or may not have heard, Eric. So you have to go listen to these on Spotify Premium. I'm going to pick another one from Siamese Dream, which is called Soma. Very haunting track, but it's equally got a killer guitar solo, I think. Nice. Maybe even better than this one. But I love this song so much that's why I slid it in there. And then another one I'm going to include, one of my other favorites from the Pumpkins, is called Zero, which is from the next album, Melancholy and Infinite Sadness. It very short song, and thus the solo is short, but it's a very Tom Morello solo. Wow. Very, very squealing, very, for those of you, Tom from Rage Against the Machine.
Right.
Very high pitched and stuff. So y'all check that one out if you haven't heard Zero before, back from 1995. So stay tuned. You'll hear those bonus songs in their entirety if you're listening to Spotify Premium. Otherwise, we'll give you those song whip links in the show notes that'll connect you with the songs in your favorite music app. And if you like the show, please subscribe, of course. Leave us a rating in your favorite app. Spotify, you can go up to 5 stars. We'd appreciate 5. But, that helps us to, whatever the algorithms are in Spotify, to get us up the charts and expose a little bit more when you rate your podcast more. So we would appreciate if you do that. And then, of course, we're under the Retro Network of Podcasts. Go over to Patreon, patreon.com/The Retro Network, and get your name in our show notes for every episode. And even you'll get them in the back episodes as well, because it's an updated thing. It's pretty cool. Our host Transistor does. So
nice.
Anyway, greatestlistpodcast.com. You can stream our episodes there, of course. And then any feedback, we're on Twitter at Greatest Lists. Eric will take over for our number 12 selection in the next episode, which you will want to hear. Want, people. Thanks for listening to Greatest List, and we look forward to continuing our list of the top 25 guitar solos of the 90s on the next episode.
You've been listening to The Greatest Lists.